Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of the Parkinson's Policy Podcast. This is a show where we advocate together to raise awareness and advance meaningful policy for the Parkinson's community. From Washington, D.C., at the U.S. Capitol and beyond, we bring together senators, representatives, researchers, advocates to amplify the voices of people living with Parkinson's disease. My name is Dr. George Ackerman. I'm Sharon's son and founder of TogetherForSharon.com, joined by my incredible co-host, Margaret, Preston, president of Power Over Parkinson's, and we want to send you a beautiful welcome and looking forward to really tackling some important policy topics today.
Absolutely. Thank you, George. I have the pleasure of introducing my now friend with the good work we did here at the Capitol in Virginia, Geoff Horsfield. He's a legislative director at the EWG and working on policies to make food more sustainable and healthier. Prior to joining the EWG in 2021, he worked in government affairs for a consulting firm, as well as the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and interned in the office of Senator Booker. Horsfield has also served in AmeriCorps with AIDS United in Durham, North Carolina, and is volunteer coordinator for Carolina Tiger Rescue. Geoff holds a bachelor's degree from Gettysburg College and a master's degree from right here in Virginia at William & Mary. So Geoff, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us here on the Parkinson's Policy Podcast.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. And one of the things that I really enjoy about working for Environmental Working Group is, even though we are an environmental organization, it's really all about public health. And I love that we're able to make these connections and build this, this advocacy coalition. I think especially around, these critically important issues.
Well,
welcome again to the show. It's such an important thing you're all doing. I follow from Florida. I wish we had you in every state, and I know you are working to help change the policy throughout the country, and it's really one state at a time. We were just curious what encouraged you before we even start today to get into this area of work. It's not something like, I think little children when they're growing up, like I'm in law enforcement, but sometimes they'll dream of that. But the thing you're doing is actually so impactful, even more, I feel, than many other fields that growing up we might not even be aware of, because we truly do trust the government. We trust a lot of things, the food we eat, the living we do in the community. We just, sometimes people are very busy. They don't even think about these things. So I'm grateful that we have your organization to do that for us.
Well, and thank you for having me. I will preface this by saying I am a legislative director. My degree from William & Mary was public policy. So I have a very, we'll call it a soft science kind of background. And I think, for me, I always knew I wanted to get into environmental policy from talking about it, going back to, my AmeriCorps days and afterwards doing kind of environmental education. And I think, again, you see these things are so interwoven and interconnected, right? We can't talk about climate change without how that's going to impact where people live, right? Or their health. Or we can't talk about air pollution without talking about those health effects and those ramifications. So, that's one thing that I think motivated me to go work for an advocacy organization like EWG, is that we can draw those connections. We can be, I think, leaders in those space and really, to be honest, get things done, right? Like, people love to complain about Congress moving slowly, and they do. But when you're in the fight, you can really see that, we are making a difference and we're winning where we can and moving things forward. And I think, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but paraquat is a great example of that, where nobody had been talking about paraquat 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And now it's, much more out there in the mainstream and in the zeitgeist from both an environmental and a health perspective.
Absolutely. Well, I'd be remiss not to talk about the latest headline before we jump into some of the particulars around paraquat, but I wanted you to kind of give us a quick synopsis on the latest headline from Syngenta indicating they were ceasing production of paraquat June of this year. What does that mean? And does that mean we all need to take a deep breath and think the job's done?
Well, I think it's a great example of corporations recognizing, first off, that nobody wants to be producing the Parkinson's pesticide, right? Nobody wants to be in that business. So they're recognizing that it's bad PR. And I think the first shout out goes to advocates in the United Kingdom who've really been pushing Syngenta and, AKA ChemChina, Sinochem, to close that manufacturing facility for years. Activists there, members of parliament there, have recognized that it's incredibly hypocritical to be producing a pesticide that is banned in the United Kingdom and exporting it elsewhere in the world. They also have recognized, again, there's immediate health effects from that manufacturing facility or running those risks of spills and other potential dangers. So again, first shout out to them for pushing back against Syngenta and ChemChina and getting that facility to get out of the paraquat business. But I think, as you mentioned, all Syngenta did is announce that they are ending production at that UK facility. And it is currently their only production facility for paraquat. But we know that there are at least 4 other production facilities producing paraquat, all located in China so far that we've been able to track. There may be some others in other countries, notably India, might also have a production facility producing paraquat. It's unknown right now based off of where I am in my research and engagement with the US EPA. But all the Syngenta announcement is that they are ending production at that one facility. They have said nothing about getting out of the paraquat business. They could very easily start producing paraquat at another facility in China. They could very easily start purchasing paraquat from one of those other production facilities. Notably, the second largest importer of paraquat to the United States is this company called Red Sun. Red Sun is another Chinese state-owned corporation, and they are the second largest producer of paraquat. So again, this announcement, I think, says more about the economics of paraquat production, that they no longer have the patent, so there are competitors out there producing it, and they are losing control of that. It also, again, says more about the advocacy in the United Kingdom and more about the PR of, again, being associated with a disease as harmful as Parkinson's and a toxic herbicide as harmful as paraquat. The Syngenta announcement also said nothing about Gramoxone. Gramoxone is the brand of paraquat that Syngenta or ChemChina produces. So again, they could very easily continue to sell paraquat under that brand, just purchasing the active ingredient elsewhere and formulating it at one of their other facilities. They could also very easily turn around and sell that brand, as happens all the time with these big chemical companies. They can just sell the brand to another chemical company. So Gramoxone is still out there in the marketplace. Until we have a nationwide ban, or until we have a ban in all 50 states here, this announcement means nothing for toxic environmental exposures to paraquat and environmental risks of Parkinson's disease.
It's amazing how they don't state the rest of what you just said in that article. They only say the win, which is concerning because the regular citizen might think, oh, look, it's done now. I can rest. That's why this show is so important.
This is also, there's no legal binding here. There's no legal recourse. So what if the economics look different in June or July or August? They could very easily, and this is part of, it seems, a broader shift in Syngenta, ChemChina's kind of corporate structure. But, who says they can't just decide that, oh, it's actually more economic to get back into producing paraquat at this UK facility? They could just very easily start it up. So again, until we have bans on its sale and use in every state, we are not safe, and there will still be paraquat exposures to people in this country.
Well, I do appreciate what EWG and you are doing. You kind of touched on some of this already, but maybe you can also reiterate what specific environmental toxins have the strongest scientific link to Parkinson's disease today, and what policy action should be prioritized immediately to reduce this exposure, and in a way, how can also everyone listening help?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we talked a lot about paraquat. Paraquat is a toxic herbicide that has been in use since the 60s, although we've known about only because of some of the civil cases, we've known about some of the environmental risks and neurological impacts from paraquat, only through civil lawsuits, essentially. So paraquat, I think, is really, the big one. The other primary environmental risk is this chemical called TCE, or trichloroethylene. TCE was banned by the Biden administration. The Biden EPA in 2024 announced that they were doing rulemaking to ban TCE, and they finalized that at the end of 2024. And EWG and others defeated some efforts in Congress to undo that ban. TCE was once commonly used to remove grease from metal parts, such as steel pipes and engines, and it was a solvent in dry cleaning and carpet cleaning products and others. TCE is also occasionally still contaminating waterways in this country, and it's linked not only with Parkinson's disease, but also birth defects, leukemia, liver, kidney damage. It's highly volatile, can enter indoor air through water and pipes, and is particularly harmful, again, to developing children because of how, again, small they are and how their brains operate. So, the two that we, EWG, have most commonly worked on are TCE and paraquat. And again, TCE shows that we can continue to make progress. I think broadly, we also are recognizing, and this is, again, I am not a scientist and not an air pollution per se expert, but we know more and more that, fine particulate matter and other harmful air exposures have also been connected to Parkinson's disease. So just creating, again, a much broader, healthier environment, addressing climate change, all of that has co-benefits in terms of our everyday health and reducing some of these other environmental risks.
Absolutely. We've learned so much about how the environment has really been one of the drivers and triggers of Parkinson's disease. I think no one's disputing that at this point, as you talked about TCE, paraquat, et cetera. Some of the man-made chemicals creating this uptick in Parkinson's. So how is the EWG translating emerging science into more actionable policy change at the federal and state level?
Yeah, it's really tough because even just in this call, right, how many acronyms have I accidentally thrown out without explaining? So apologies to the listeners and the viewers for that. But it becomes really complicated because we're dealing with one ingredient, paraquat, and talking about all those impacts to the brain. And, now we're also talking about, what's gramoxone or Chemquat or Quickquat or some of these other herbicide brands that have paraquat in it as the active ingredient. So I think it can become really complicated for consumers. So I think the first thing that, EWG does is we really try to, I think, meet folks at the level where they are. And one of the ways we do that is, and it was just announced this week as we're recording, but our annual Clean 15 Dirty Dozen, which is fruits and vegetables that have the most pesticide residues on them if you were to buy conventional. And the benefit there is if it's on the Dirty Dozen, you want to try to buy organic. And that is, again, reducing your pesticide exposure as a consumer. But when we purchase organic foods, we're also helping the farm workers who are out in the fields, maybe, again, avoiding applying some of these pesticides like paraquat. We're helping the farmers. We're also showing a really strong market signal to growers that, hey, it's okay if I stop using paraquat. It's okay if I shift my production model to something else. It will still be economically viable for me. I think farmers and growers, producers are naturally very risk adverse. So if something has been working or if they used something in the past, it becomes really difficult or entrenched to try something different. So when groups like EWG are talking about, support organic or talk to your farmers at your farmers market, that is helping to send that market signal that it is okay for them to change their production models. And there's an economic incentive for them to do so. Yeah. The other way that we do that is, that's kind of the consumer facing side. My work is I'm a legislative director, so I work much more closely with members of Congress and their staff, and lawmakers in each of the different states. So right now, there are 14 states that are considering, either through legislation or through administrative processes, paraquat bans or restrictions. And that's really exciting. And our job there is to, again, make sure that these staff and their lawmakers are informed, that we are elevating not just the voices of folks in the scientific community who, again, have long known this connection, but to elevate the voices of advocates and people involved in the Parkinson's fight, like the viewers and listeners. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we really need you in Florida, so let me know when you're ready to have some shorts on in the sun, but also fight here. But
Always.
how come federal and state governments also better regulate chemical like pesticides, as you mentioned, and industrial pollutants to both prevent future Parkinson's cases and protect high-risk communities? Because, unfortunately, I lost my mother 6 years ago, but we're still fighting for, Margaret's father and everyone listening. And I always fear even my own children. I don't want them to have to deal with this in, 5-10 years from now.
Yeah. I'm, again, really, terribly sad to hear that. And I think what gives me a little bit of hope is, again, just this week, as we're recording it, last week, the Vermont House of Representatives became the first chamber to pass a paraquat ban bill this year. So Vermont is moving forward with a ban on the use of paraquat. And that, again, gives me a lot of hope that we can make progress in this fight. And leading up to that, there was some local reporting in Vermont, and a really great story that interviewed a neurologist at the University of Vermont. And she said something that I think really speaks to me, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't have the quote right here in front of me, but she said, if I could ask any one of my patients who has Parkinson's disease, if you could go back and reduce any single risk or any single possible exposure that led to this diagnosis, they would all say yes in a heartbeat. And I think that's what this fight is about, is it's reducing as much of that risk as possible. And it's going to be up to the states to do so. I think, oh, go ahead.
I mean, I'm 100% unfortunately a believer that it was environment. My mother had no real health issues, and she had one time, I remember she had termites in the house, and they used to literally call it bombing the house. You couldn't come back for days, and also mold in the house. So I'm 100% Roundup. So
yeah,
you don't have to really sell me on this, because I'm 100% support the work you're all doing.
Absolutely. Geoff, you touched on some of the actionable things folks can do in terms of talking to their local farmers market, etc. But I wanted to kind of elaborate on that for folks who are, of course, concerned about these environmental links to Parkinson's. What are some effective ways individuals can get involved in the work that you're doing and support it and really push for meaningful policy change?
Yeah. So I mentioned that there are 14 states that are currently considering either bills or administrative processes to ban or restrict paraquat further. I think if folks live in one of those states, and I'll make sure that you all have the link as well to each of those, so I don't have to go through and name them all. But if folks live in one of those states, call your elected officials, send them emails. There's tools on the EWG website that can help with that. And, I think when it comes to something like this, lawmakers and their staff need to be hearing from people in the community. It is, I am a firm believer that constituent action can make a difference. I used to work in a congressional office, and one thing that they do, especially if they're good staffers, is you tally up and you count every single phone call, every single email that comes in. And you lay those down and you look at where the numbers are. You look at where the public is. And that can get somebody from opposing to neutral, somebody from neutral to supporting, somebody from supporting to becoming a champion. We need these lawmakers to be thinking of the folks that are listening and watching when they are confronted with this issue. When they ever hear the words Parkinson's, I want them thinking about folks who are listening and watching, they need to have that personal connection because that can help make the difference in the end, right? Nobody said that this is easy, that lawmaking is easy, and that there wouldn't be opposition. But getting over that hump, I think, really takes those personal connections. So if folks live in one of those states, call your lawmakers, ask them to support the bill, send emails, build that connection, build that relationship with those staff. It can never be just a one-time thing. Engage there. I am happy to work with anyone too. So feel free to share my email address with folks if they want to reach out. I'm happy to give them insight on any of their states or other states that can consider a paraquat ban bill. We know that action federally is at least several years away. The EPA in January 2025 withdrew their prior decision on paraquat and said that they will re-review it. That re-review process from the federal government can take 3 to 4 years as they go through, again, step-by-step evaluating paraquat and are confronted with new information like a 2024 study that showed an increased volatilization of paraquat, showing that people up to 2.7 miles away from where it's mixed and sprayed could be impacted by paraquat use. So they're going to consider all of those factors, and that is a very slow process, and it has historically been the states that have taken action first in addressing harmful pesticides. We look at the fight against DDT and Agent Orange. It was the states that first started banning that following Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, way before the federal government could take action. Yeah. So it is, I think, going to be up to the states now to continue to fight and be the first ones that can make a difference. So I think, folks, contact your lawmakers, make sure that they're aware of this connection, make sure that they're aware of the environmental risk of whether it's pollutants or pesticides to neurological diseases like Parkinson's disease. Lastly, if you're not in one of those states and you're looking to do something, federally, there is a bill called the Healthy Brains Act that would increase research into looking at this environmental and neurological disease connection.
Yeah, I think you took us full circle really well because we started, of course, with the Syngenta news, and we're not going to be protected unless we have that ban, and the ban comes really from our own action, particularly now at the state level. So thank you for kind of tying a bow on that and really getting us all mobilized. I'll speak personally as to the work you did in mobilizing us here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I will say we really, there's a lot of education that needed to be done, right? And I think that's the foundational level. When we had those meetings with the delegates, some of them hadn't even heard of paraquat. Yeah. So it's a matter of creating that foundation, as you helped us all do here in the Commonwealth, to help lawmakers understand what is paraquat. That's, I think, mission number one, right? Laying the foundation, creating the awareness of, and of course its ties to Parkinson. So people can be, educators to lawmakers, and they don't even realize it. So I want to thank you for mobilizing us here in the Commonwealth and giving it a go, and we'll be back at it in 27.
Yeah, there's way more to come. And I think we've seen that, again, the opposition, these entrenched interests behind these foreign chemical companies, we know that they're out there talking to lawmakers. And if advocates are not engaging, then we are ceding that space. Yeah. So it's really up to us to make sure that they, again, are hearing from advocates. And I view it as my job to make it as easy as possible for folks to become involved, right? This shouldn't be your day-to-day job. It's my day-to-day job. So help me make it as easy as possible for you all and to engage with lawmakers and elected officials.
Well, you really inspire both of us today, and I'm sure our audience, and so much knowledge and so little time, but this, I feel, will last beyond just today. Even when the lights, camera, and paparazzi leave, the show continues because we have a lot of work to be done. I was wondering if you could leave the community, the Parkinson's community, with some words of encouragement. What would those be?
I think the biggest thing is that, people are listening. Sometimes it can feel, when we do advocacy, when we do constituent outreach, when we talk to lawmakers, sometimes it feels like we're writing our message down on a piece of paper, folding it into a little ball and throwing it into a well that you can't see the bottom of. But that, I will tell you, is not the case, is that action is building up inside of that well. Other people see you throw that paper into that well, to really kill my my metaphor here. People are seeing that action, you're motivating others, and you don't really know, I think, where those connections are going to end up coming into play. I think a great example is we had a press event in early February in Harrisburg to talk about the bill there to ban paraquat. And this press conference was in the halls. We had a really great turnout from local Parkinson's advocates and farmers and lawmakers, and we had some of the bill champions were scheduled to speak, and they did. But then 2 other lawmakers showed up, lawmakers who, we didn't ask to speak, but they were so motivated by hearing and listening to everyone's stories that they wanted time to make sure that they could speak on this issue too, that they could strongly express their support. So, that was unexpected to me, and I think really encouraging to hear their, again, personal stories and connections. And I think it's that motivation where we look for those little wins. And, I think Virginia is a great example. So Margaret mentioned our work in Richmond, advocating for our bill here. And this bill, unfortunately, didn't pass this session. Virginia has, for folks who don't know, a historically very short session, just a few weeks to pass bills. But, that I think really showed that we are serious about this fight. It showed lawmakers that there's a strong, again, paraquat and Parkinson's connection, that there's a really powerful voting bloc behind this, that it's unifying farmers and workers and unions and labor, environmentalists, and folks in the health community to, get to really rally behind this. So, while we didn't necessarily win this session in Virginia, I think that we made a lot of great progress and people are talking about it. And that in and itself is a win. So I think looking for those wins where we get it.
I think we're in the right timing. For some reason, just recently, the national plan to end Parkinson passed a year or 2 ago. Now all the work you're doing is coming to the forefront. And I think that if everyone listening supports all EWG does, we're going to make even more incredible progress. And we wanted to really thank you and the entire organization for your time, commitment, and really excited to see the future, but also stand by your side. I wanted to send the show to some final remarks back to my incredible co-host, Margaret.
Yeah, Geoff, we just wanted to thank you for sharing your time with us for this interview and your life's work and what you do to clean the environment in an array of ways. We can't thank you enough as both people having had or have a parent with Parkinson's. We're personally grateful to everything you do. And are behind you and will continue to be behind you and partner with you in the states that we live in as well. So thank you.
Oh, and again, thank you so much for having me. And it is your work and your advocacy and, your voices that really inspire me and give me a lot of comfort when I feel like I'm just throwing balls into a well. So that is, again, it's so encouraging and so motivating. And I really appreciate the partnership that we all have.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you again. And also thank our incredible community and listeners. Please share the show. Please also look at we've had some incredible episodes coming soon, and also that we've already had the representatives. Virginia, Pennsylvania has been so incredible, and we hope to be at a state near you too. We want every single state in the U.S. to be involved in the show. And you can be sure Margaret and I will be behind the scenes working as hard as we can. The staffers, the senators, congressmen, and state reps, just to ensure that their voices are not just heard, but count, and that all of you also please reach out to your senators, tell them to come on the show. We need if everyone out there reaches out and lets them know about the Parkinson Policy Podcast, we'll also be able to ensure your voices are heard. This has been another incredible episode of the Parkinson Policy Podcast, where we advocate together to raise awareness and advance meaningful policy for the Parkinson's community. From Washington, D.C. to at the U.S. Capitol and beyond, we bring senators, representatives, researchers, and advocates together as you can see today, to amplify the voices of people living with Parkinson's disease. I'm so grateful again for Geoff, for EWG, and of course the work behind the scenes, and in front from my amazing co-host Margaret and Power Over Parkinson's. We love you all, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone.